let's talk about the Syria refugee issue. I mean, there's a lot of different takes coming out on all sides from that.
Yeah, I guess my take is number one, what is the real vetting process that these people go through? And how on earth do you vet somebody who's got one suitcase and you can't contact anybody except the people he's traveling with or something, he or she? It's a very difficult situation. I don't understand why they don't create a safe zone for those people in the Middle East, whether it's in Iraq or whether it's in, well, I don't think Turkey because that's a kind of a questionable area, but so that they don't have to flee into Europe. I mean, this is a disaster waiting to happen, as we just saw with the terror attacks in Paris.
Well, what about bringing refugees to the United States?
Why? Why? You know, if you look at the number of disadvantaged people around the world that would like to come to the United States, our population would grow by 3 billion people overnight if they could all get here. So, I would err on the side of, and obviously, you can segment somebody who's like 75 years old, and I mean, there are a whole bunch of different screening tactics you can use. If you have a military-aged man, you better worry about that person. I mean, that's the way I think you have to look at it. The reason is because they're very good at their inner and outer Muslim self as they present themselves. That's what they've been trained to do. So I would err on the side of caution, especially now. And I think the overriding thing that has to happen, and of course, as we predicted, the French would become very aggressive in their pursuit of these people at ISIS. And you hear that now they're sending an aircraft carrier there so that they can be closer to the action.
So is your take not let people in, or let people in with a vetting, some sort of vetting process, or let people in?
Well, I would have to know. Well, I would like to know what is the vetting process. How are you really vetting? Now, if you have a person who has a very systematic track record, you can see where they've traveled within the system, and it makes sense. If somebody travels to Syria, repeatedly, and then goes back to Europe, and then this person is trouble. I mean, it's just got all the red flags written on it.
One thing, too, is most of these people are refugees who have had their lives basically destroyed. And what I think is interesting is on the Republican side, they talk about American excellence. Let's spread American excellence to the world. America is, or to quote young little Marco Rubio, America is the greatest country in the world. It's the greatest country in the world, and we need to push that excellence throughout the world and spread American excellence because we are a great country. Yeah, well, American excellence, turning your freaking backs on people whose lives basically destroyed by the
okay. How many refugees are in Europe now? And first of all, what they were really destroyed by was radical Islam. That's what they were destroyed by.
Right, but radical Islam, remember a lot of these fighting age men, that are there, that are of the age to fight, the young men fighting, a lot of their parents died, were killed in that Iraq war. They were left fatherless.
So in your mind, that justifies what they're doing.
Well, what I'm saying is that it's one of the causes of what they're doing. I'm not saying it justifies it,
okay.
But I mean it's like look at how fervent the South was at and they still are about that, because my great grandfather was killed by them Yankees. So it's like if there wasn't that illegal invasion of the Middle East, the radicalism would not probably be as radical, is what I'm saying. I'm not saying there's never people who are that radical, but it definitely threw gasoline on the fire of radicalism. And what I'm saying about these refugees, and I agree with you, if somebody's a young man of fighting age, well, but if it's women and children and old people looking for some place to live.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. Why do they have to leave the Middle East? Why? How does that make economic sense for anyone?
Well,
for the
where are they going to go?
They have to go to, and this is what I'm saying, you have to create a safe zone. First of all, the number one thing is destroy ISIS. No matter what, I don't care how many of their relatives were killed in that illegal war, that's not justifying Al Qaeda to me either. So, in my view, the number one priority is eliminate ISIS, period.
So are
They,
you a boots on the ground?
absolutely. Well, I certainly think there's a lot more that can be done with air power than people think. And it's partly an intelligence
Because
role.
that's what exclamation point is calling for now, which is pretty ironic.
It's very ironic, but it's consistent with his inconsistency on everything else. But from my standpoint, will boots eventually have to go on the ground? Of course they will. How would we pay for it? We take the oil from Iraq to pay for every single cent of it. And we also take the oil to pay for housing those people so that they can live in a safe environment away from this political
So
insanity.
that's sort of the Trump card. That's sort of what Trump is saying.
Great. I'm all for it.
That's sort of what Trump is saying.
And whack them so hard that they never think about it. But give them their own version of family club Iraqi so that they can say, yeah, okay, they did it. They built something for us to have a better life. That's what we should do.
So your take is probably not let refugees into the U.S. and find somewhere in the Middle East and build a safe haven for them.
Well, first of all, for the vast majority of people, that's what we have to do. That's what we have to. We have to give them a life near or in their homeland. It doesn't make any sense to transport them halfway around the world into a society that's very foreign in many regards to them, and where they're going to have to be totally supported from day one to the rest of their life, probably. So to me, now if you take in selected people who, for whatever reason, were caught in the unusual circumstance, and I think whether the number is 100,000, 200,000, it's not going to have a major impact on what is really the problem over there. And that's that we have to eliminate, and also the problem that's going to be spreading. I mean, ISIS is just it's like a cancer that has to be removed, otherwise it's going to metastasize and you're going to be dead. That's the way I view it. So, what is the vetting process? Should we just let everybody in from over there? Or is there a way you can actually vet them and see if they're...
Well, I guess the first question is, do we or don't we?
Okay, here's the other question. So what about Africa? What about all the horrific stuff that's going on in Africa, and what about those poor people?
Right. Well, there's no oil in Africa that we know of.
That they've discovered yet.
That they've discovered yet.
So...
That they've discovered yet.
Yeah, you're right about that. But back to the oil. Yeah, let's have them pay for every penny of it, and let's have them be forced to construct safe cities. I also think there's a big problem with these fighters and these ISIS people and thinking that they're like elite soldiers. They're not. Okay, it's just like, remember the Republican Guard that was going to be so tough, and I mean, we blew through them so fast, it's ridiculous. The end analysis is the U.S. has the best fighting forces on the world, period, if they're deployed properly and if they have a mission that can be accomplished. Okay, so it has to be accomplished in the context that we let everybody know that radical Islamic jihadism is unacceptable to the United States of America, because it's about the destruction of Western civilization as we know it.
Well, I guess the other thing, which was actually a good point that Clinton made, is just how complex that whole area is, and who's aligned with who, and who represents who, and if you're giving weapons to somebody, are they going to turn them back around on you later? I mean, it's really hard to know exactly what is going on there. And I'm sure in the news we don't even really know what's going on there.
Yeah, I think it's of course, this has been going on for thousands of years.
No, exactly, and that's another point, is that you're never going to stop it completely. I mean, unless you build Club Iraqi and turn everybody into Starbucks drinking, Jägermeister tossing, strip club going, styled people. You know.
Well, well, I think that I like to call it the family version of Club Iraqi. Is that yes, if you can actually get a job and do something, if you have a safe life, you have the potential for life. I mean, life without horror. That's what needs to take place. But is that going to take place by well-wishing and taking refugees out? No, the only way it's going to take place is if you go in and whack ISIS so hard they never think about doing it again. Now, are those people going to say, "Oh, I'm pissed off because my buddies in Paris got killed"? Well, this is a time.
Well, the other thing too is it seems like it's a different kind of warfare because say you go in there and you whack them so hard. I mean, they're never going to whack. They're going to whack back like the Paris attacks. They're going to whack back by getting a bunch of people, giving them some guns, and going, "All right, at 8 o'clock, you're going to the club, you're going to the stadium, you're going to the restaurant, and we're all just going to open fire and blow ourselves up." I mean, that's pretty hard. You can't stop that with tanks and drones.
Well, the best way to stop that is through human intelligence. Okay, and that's what we don't have enough of. I would happily call out the CIA for doing a mediocre job on everything in the Middle East.
But see, and then that starts the other fine line of how much do you want to have surveillance on American citizens? Because when you open up the can of worms to, all right, we need the greatest intelligence, and basically we got to spy on everybody.
Well,
and unless you just racially profile completely,
which I don't think is a bad thing. I mean, let's be realistic. The vast majority of Islamic jihadists happen to be Middle Eastern men of a certain age and women. As we know, there are some sympathizers, just like the woman who blew herself up today, sympathizing with her cousin. But fundamentally, if you have inside intel, now of course you never know about the CIA's victories because they don't advertise those. So I want to give the agency that credit. But fundamentally, the level of spending in this area is inadequate. The level of staffing in the area is inadequate. It's not all about guns, but in fact, guns end up determining most things. Okay, is that if you have a radical Islamist, unless you take them out, they're just going to do what they do, which is kill innocent people.
It is a different. It isn't a conventional. I don't think it's a conventional. Boots on the ground war. Go through, wipe out everything in the site because the people can just disappear into the population.
Well,
and come out and say, "All right, 9 o'clock, we meet here and we just kill people."
I got my. Let me get this call here.